Okay, Brian, we're live on YouTube. You can go ahead.
All right, thanks a lot, Kevin. Yeah, thank you to everyone who joined today. Good afternoon. This is the pre-bid conference for the Ogden Avenue Invest Southwest RFP site. This is located at 3400 to 3418 West Ogden. My name is Brian Hacker. I'm a planner with the West Region and the Department of Planning and Development. And we're joined here today by representatives of not just DPD, but several other city departments and other agencies. So before we get going with the presentation, I'd like to give Gerardo Garcia a few minutes here just to say hello and welcome everyone. He's the lead planner for the West Region at DPD, as well as Deputy Commissioner of the Planning Bureau.
Thanks, Brian. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking time out of your afternoon to be with us. And especially thanks for your interest in this site and in Invest Southwest, of which this RFP is one of the critical tools to encourage economic development on the south and west sides, and particularly in North Lawndale. As Brian mentioned, we have a panel of folks from across city agencies to help answer some of the questions that may come up as part of your RFP review, as well as we're going to be posting all questions and answers to our city website shortly after this meeting. And so really looking forward to everyone's questions and obviously to your responses in the near future. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian, and I'll be around for answers to questions, as well as want to acknowledge that Commissioner Cox is on the line with us. He has a conflict and has to leave a little bit early, but he wanted to be here to hear some of the feedback from folks.
Thanks, Gerardo. So yeah, as was just mentioned, this is the format for today's meeting. So we're going to have a presentation running about 10 minutes, might be a little bit longer than that, but we'll leave generous time for Q&A at the end. And please keep in mind that, you know, if we cannot answer a question today in the meeting, you know, everything will be posted in a Q&A document and addressed in detail. So there may be some things that we need to put off until that document is released, but that'll be available on the DPD website where the RFPs can be downloaded, where you would have registered already. Okay. So just to provide some background here to begin with, as I'm sure everyone here is probably already aware, this is not, you know, a typical kind of city RFP for publicly owned land. We're trying to do something here that has a little bit stronger of a vision and a heavy involvement from the city side in terms of the project that's selected and the assistance that it gets. So if you've had a chance to read over the document, you can see that a heavy community process was involved. We worked with talented designers and studio gang who helped us with visuals for this project to help us, as the text states here, to illustrate the desired urbanism that we're looking for on this site, and guide the program of the building as well. And it also outlines in depth what city incentives are available and offers a draft pro forma of how they could be applied to a potential project to ensure this project's financial feasibility. So to take a broader look at Invest Southwest, to date, the DPD has released 7 RFPs in Invest Southwest corridors. Austin, Englewood, and Auburn Gresham were part of the first round that was released in August 2020. We've already received responses to those, with the deadline coming at end of November. And these next 4 were released on November 30th, North Lawndale, Bronzeville, New City, Back of the Yards, and South Chicago. So again, these are the visions that have been presented for the 4 projects that were released in on November 30th. As you can see, South Chicago is on the 89th and Commercial intersection there. New City is at a parcel that's at 47th and Justine. Bronzeville is near the intersection of 47th and Vincennes. And North Lawndale at the Ogden and Homan, excuse me, Ogden and Homan intersection. To provide some community context, this is obviously in the North Lawndale community area. So North Lawndale, you know, is a community of roughly 40,000 on Chicago's west side, bordered on the west by the west boundary of the city. It includes Douglas Park, which is probably the you know, most defining feature of the neighborhood. But to just call out some other you know, projects that are underway right now and activity that's happening in the neighborhood, some areas of new development. To the east of Douglas Park is Sinai Hospital, which has a fairly large campus there. They're currently working on the Ogden Commons project, which is looking to expand the land uses in that area to add mixed income housing, office, retail, and this is a collaboration between Sinai and Cinespace and the Chicago Housing Authority. You may also be familiar with the the Roosevelt and Costner RFP site. This was another recently released RFP by DPD with that had a deadline of late December of last year. So we're currently looking at responses to that. But this is a large site, about 20 acres on the northwest in the northwest corner of North Lawndale. Another area that's on the corridor that's worth noting is the Lawndale Christian campus, where they have several healthcare buildings as well as some other community development projects there. So that's another area of activity in the neighborhood. Obviously, that's not a comprehensive list. There are others that had to leave out due to time. So to zero in on the Ogden Avenue Invest Southwest corridor. So this spans the section of Ogden from Kedzie to the east out to Pulaski to the west. And this is an area with a lot of history. It is the eastern terminus of famous Route 66. So there's a lot of still architectural remnants from that time, and buildings like the Douglas Park Auditorium that you can see here, the Castle Car Wash, that are you know, symbols of what Ogden used to be you know, in the past decade and even going further back when it was just a real active and focal point for the North Lawndale community, which has seen a lot of changes over time. And I also wanted to call out too some more recent developments on the corridor, like the Farm on Ogden, which is a project that was done in cooperation with Lawndale Christian and the Chicago Botanic Garden, and which is just to the west of the RFP site. This is an area that has a lot of institutional uses to it. In addition to the healthcare uses that are on there, it's includes the 10th District Police Station, the Legacy Charter School, several other community service facilities as well. And the site itself is within walking distance of the Central Park Pink Line station, which is at Central Park in Ogden, about 3 blocks to the west of the RFP site. For the site itself, you can see here from this drone image that it's a completely vacant site located on the north side of Ogden, between Homan to the east and Trumbull to the west. It's just under an acre of developable land. As I mentioned before, it's within close enough proximity to the Central Park Pink Line station that it does qualify for TOD zoning bonuses with the appropriate, you know, zoning applied to it. We recently received an appraisal for the property of $180,000. And I just want to make a note here that the outline of what we're considering as the development site is not exactly the same as the parcels. You'll notice on the next slide the difference between the two, but the way that we're approaching this is with the expectation that the alley, which you can see providing access to the east on Homan, would be relocated in a straight line, essentially east to west, to allow for a consolidated development site. And to provide that additional detail on the parcels here, you can see with the color coding, this shows the ownership and the zoning of the properties. The properties that are fronting on Ogden Avenue are all zoned C12. The ones that are outlined in the light blue are owned by the city of Chicago. The one that is in gold in the center is a privately owned property. The property that's fronting on Trumbull is residential zoning of RT-4, and it's also city-owned. Regarding the privately owned property that's in the center of the site here, the city is pursuing acquisition of this currently. The owner has not been able to be reached. So they've been notified, and this, I'm sorry, acquisition authority has been granted for the property, but the owner was not able to be identified. So the city is currently exploring strategies for acquiring it, and that process is underway. So as I mentioned before, we worked with Studio Gang Architects to do a community planning process for this site to provide some guidance on the development vision and community priorities. This is one of the exhibits that they generated. It's impossible to consider the future of this site without considering its relationship to Ogden Avenue, which stands out as being an extremely wide right-of-way. Among the widest in the city. As you can see, the other right-of-ways that it's compared to, one of them is the Stevenson Expressway. It's just slightly more narrow than that highway. So this is something that needs to be taken into consideration with proposals for the property. This is a roadway that poses challenges, and although the city and DPD and CDOT are considering how these conditions can be improved, we want to see development on this site have a real strong pedestrian, multimodal focus to them to really try to mitigate the impact of Ogden Avenue and its nature for the past few decades of just essentially being designed to move traffic as quickly as possible. Studio Gang also was able to dig up some really cool images that show the past historic development pattern along Ogden Avenue and really contrast what's out there today with the role that this corridor played in the past. So I just want to quickly point out, some of the contrast here. As you can see, Ogden Avenue used to be a more green corridor, a streetcar served corridor that was not just for automobiles, nice wide medians with greenery, trees. You can see in the image on the left, the Douglas Park Auditorium is still there in that image from 1937. And then in the image to the right, you can see the aerial of the difference in development pattern from the past versus what we see today, with a lot of vacant lots, a lot of parking lots, a lot of large institutional uses. So this is a inspiration for us to try to get back to a more human scaled, a more pedestrian scaled style of development on the corridor. As I mentioned before, we did a community outreach and planning process, and this is something that has been spanning the past year, if not longer. We looked in creating this RFP, for guidance to previous planning studies that have been done, not just for Ogden, but for the North Lawndale community area, particularly the 2018 Quality of Life Plan that was led by the NLCCC organization. We did a significant community outreach for the Invest Southwest kickoff. That would have been back in January of 2020. We hold monthly roundtables with local stakeholders and community leaders to get their feedback and discuss this project in depth in that forum. We also reached out individually to folks for in the community for stakeholder interviews, and held a visioning workshop that had about 40 attendees back in October of last year. And as you can see here, this is the word cloud that was generated in that workshop meeting. So you can see what some of the priorities are. And we'll talk about that more in the upcoming slides. So based on the feedback that we got on, design and, the way a project should integrate itself with the surrounding urban context, Studio Gang generated this beautiful rendering of what a project on this location could look like, and not just what a building on this site could look like and the sort of, structural elements could be, but what a transformed pedestrian environment could also look like. I think if anyone's familiar with the site today, the vision that's being shown here it's quite a departure from what you see out there now. And this is the kind of environment that we would like to help achieve with this project, realizing that it's not the only investment that needs to occur on the corridor to achieve something like what you see in this image. And again, this is, it's a vision, as it states in the RFP. It's one possibility of what could happen on this site. And to delve a little bit further into that, we also took a look at the site that's across the street. This is currently parking for the 10th District Police Station, but as is called out in the RFP, we are working with a developer that's got a strong community presence, strong community partnership to do a affordable housing development on this site. And so this is a block here, the 3400 West block of Ogden, that the city is investing heavily in, and that we have a very strong vision to see some really positive changes that can be transformative and catalytic on this corridor. So I wanted to show, that this extends beyond just the RFP site, and that we see this as a kind of, beginning of a long-term process to transform Ogden Avenue, both in the private and public realms. As I mentioned before, we heavily considered the financial incentives that could be applied to a project like this to help address gaps in financing. So the city has several tools to apply to this, as well as, at other levels of sponsorship, but particularly the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, or NOF as we call it, as well as the TIF program would be utilized heavily for a project like this, but we would also consider the potential to apply other incentives like Cook County property tax incentives and federal new market tax credits. Additionally, for the evaluation of the responses that we'll receive, I'd like to walk through what the major criteria are that we're going to be considering. So in the left column here, one of the major priorities, and this is addressed in depth in the RFP document, is the priority to promote short and long-term community wealth building. So this is a term that has multiple facets to it. We want to see significant representation in the development partnership of community representatives, of Black-owned businesses, whether that is in the on the partner side, development partner side, in the contractor, the designer, the tenants that are going to be filling out the any storefront spaces that are part of the project. These need to be integrated into the project, and we're going to be heavily considering that as criteria. And we're also going to be involving our community stakeholders that are in our roundtable meetings, as well as going to a larger group in the community. So they're going to be holding us accountable for what we're saying here and making that a true priority. We're obviously also going to be looking at the development team's professional and technical competence. you know, proof that they've been able to, you know, successfully deliver, you know, projects that are maybe not in the exact same scale, but other example projects that are relevant to this. And we also want to see a strong adherence to our neighborhood design guidelines, which were recently released in fall of last year, as well as attention to the DPD's design excellence principles. And obviously, economic feasibility is going to be a priority for this as well. So, you know, we will be reviewing the, you know, pro forma and, you know, funding sources and uses. To go into a little bit more depth on the partnership model that we're looking for. So we see this as a real opportunity to bring together, you know, potential partners who may not have worked together in the past and that represent, you know, different sectors, different backgrounds. So that's something that we're looking to really promote with a project like this. And we want to see this be representative of Invest Southwest goals overall. You know, we want to bring development to the North Lawndale community that's needed. We want to see amenities that are lacking provided. And we want to have this project be, you know, a real benefit, a tangible benefit to residents of North Lawndale. But we also want it to be a financial benefit to the residents of North Lawndale. The local organizations, local partners, local businesses that are out there, we want to use this as an opportunity to lift them up as well by bringing them on as partners in this project and having them be not just, you know, an afterthought and things like this. We want them to be integral to it. Just to touch on some of the items that I recently referenced, as I mentioned in late 2020, DPD released its list of pre-qualified designers. And so this is a list of architectural and planning firms that we think are representative of, you know, DPD's design excellence principles. I strongly recommend that you review this when forming your teams. And this is not just representative of firms that have delivered quality projects. It's also considerate of diversity and inclusiveness in terms of the firm's ownership, which is important for a project like this. And then it also includes DPD's design excellence principles. So I won't walk through all of them here, but these are a overarching, you know, guideline to what we're looking for in a project like this and what we're hoping to accomplish, not just in terms of its architecture, but the way that it provides a benefit to the community, the way that, you know, the design process is inclusive of, you know, surrounding neighborhood and residents and, you know, things such as that. And as I already mentioned, we need to see, you know, have a tangible understanding of how this project can help to build the local wealth. And the reason why I mentioned before, why we want to see a diverse partnership team is because we feel that when a developer is led by, you know, for in this situation, you know, a Black developer working in a Black neighborhood, we feel is much more likely to hire local contractors, to work with local businesses, and to have those channels for being inclusive. And we think that there are opportunities to, you know, provide that local benefit in the development team, with the design team, the contractor and tradespeople that are going to be working on the project, and the residential and commercial tenants for the project once it's complete. To lay out the process and our next steps here, obviously right now we're in step 2, where responses are being developed. This is from December to March. The deadline is on March 30th of 2021. Once we receive the responses to the RFP, we will begin to an internal process of an initial review. Then we'll be working with members of the community via our community roundtable meetings to evaluate them and, you know, make to ensure that this is a you know, inclusive process that involves our community partners. And we expect that that'll be about 6 weeks to 2 months, and anticipate that we'll have a developer selected by the end of the second quarter in 2021. And kind of looking beyond just this phase of RFPs, you can see here the greater schedule for corridor, Invest Southwest corridor RFPs. So we are obviously that second track in the middle there. And it's our hope that we will be under construction by the first quarter of 2022, and that all of the Invest Southwest RFPs will either be, at least be under construction within 2022. And that brings us to the end of our presentation here. So I will stop here, and we'll provide or give you an ample amount of time to ask questions and address as much of that as we can now.
Ryan, before we get into questions, wanted to take a moment to acknowledge, I didn't realize he was on the line, but Alderman Scott is joining us today and has been integral, certainly, in the Invest Southwest process for North Lawndale. Just wanted to acknowledge him and thank him for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us, Alderman. And yeah, I did fail to mention, but we have worked very closely with Alderman Scott's office, and he has been extremely helpful and beneficial to this project. So we're really grateful for his partnership in this. Okay, taking a look at some of the questions here, and I apologize, I'm having okay, for the first one, it's anonymous attendee. Please clarify that the rendering in slide 14 represents a separate affordable housing development already underway across the street from the RFP site. If this is correct, can you share how many units are being provided there? Yes, so I can confirm that site, as I mentioned in the presentation, to the south side of the street, is a completely separate development that is not related to this site. But we want to call attention to the context here, the fact that there is another site, that's going to be, under construction, probably a faster timeline than this project. But we're looking at this as a, I mentioned a catalytic opportunity on the Invest Southwest corridor. And I expect that there will be 50 to 70 units of housing being constructed in that project. And it is going to be 100% affordable. At least the plan is as of right now. From Alexis, can you speak more to the history of the place and the vision you are using for inspiration? What kinds of places existed there then? What was the population like in size and makeup? Are there any similarities now? I am not the first and foremost historian of North Lawndale. The folks that we work with in the community know it far better than I do, but I will put that hat on briefly here. So as you're able to see, there was a well-timed cough from Rodney Brown from New Covenant CDC. Rodney, would you like?
That was not intentional, no.
Well, I think, Rodney, I think you would be well suited to answer this question if you don't mind taking a crack at it. If not, I'm happy to.
What was the question again?
Can you speak more to the history of the place and the vision you're using for inspiration? What kinds of places existed there then? What was the population like in size and makeup? And are there any similarities now?
And I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe the Alderman might be better suited to answer that question, because that was a while ago.
Yeah. Alderman, would you like to jump in on this?
Yeah, I can give you as much historical context as I can. I don't know exactly when that picture was taken, but what I will say is, if you look at North Lawndale, let's say mid 1900s, 1930s, 40s, 50s, when North Lawndale was the epicenter of business in the city of Chicago and probably the Midwest. we were close to 100,000, 125,000 people in total. So our size has drastically decreased since then. There was a lot of business and commerce on Ogden. I don't know, again, when that picture was taken, but I do know that 50, 60 years ago, there were, car dealerships and businesses that lined not only Ogden, but Roosevelt and 16th Street as well. And so you had Ryerson Steel, High Point, Sunbeam, Sears, and a lot of major businesses within around North Lawndale. And so what I will say is that over the last century or so, our population has decreased dramatically. And after the riots of 1968, Ogden, Roosevelt, and 16th Street that did have businesses at that time no longer have those. So that's about as much historical context as I can give you. I can't speak specifically to Ogden. I can speak to North Lawndale as a whole.
And if I could just add to that, Alderman, really quickly, part of the analysis that we did with Studio Gang, and that's kind of shown in this image here, at least for the site, is the idea that there were a series, and you can see on the plan on the right, but this site contained a series of smaller buildings that kind of made up a larger street and the street wall for the block. And so that is something that we explored. And I think one of the key takeaways, and I think, Alexis, to your question is, we looked at how a building could kind of respond to that scale and break it down a little bit further. And what we put in the RFP as a vision was just that. I think there are multiple ways to respond to this site and the historical nature of it, even with a series of potentially smaller buildings. I think that's kind of getting at a little bit at a part of your question as well.
Yeah, thanks to both of you for the responses there. And to zoom in on from what the alderman said, we've taken a look at some of the historical like Sanborn maps and things like that. And this is an area that had like the alderman referenced, there were like car dealerships here. There were also some industrial uses. I think if you go further back to like when these maps are from in the earlier 20th century, that it was a little bit more of like a community related corridor. And then over time, when you start talking about mid to late 20th century, that there became a transition towards more industrial uses during the 70s. That's pretty good background, about as much as I think we can get for you here. So I'm going to move to the next question.
Hey, real quick, because I don't think we spoke to vision. Rodney, I would like for you to speak to vision, community vision, if you would. I mean, I could, but I would prefer that you do so.
So when it comes to the community vision, part of what we're looking at is addressing the need for, you made reference earlier, Brian, to different amenities. And when we look at North Lawndale, there are a number of different amenities that we do not have. So we want to develop this area for local small businesses, but we're also looking to attract businesses that might be in existence elsewhere to come into the community, and Ogden Avenue is a good location for that. So we're looking to have small businesses, looking to have other businesses come in. We're also looking to have housing there. When we had a meeting a few months ago, we talked about what was going on and what the community wanted. We talked about housing. We talked about retail spaces. At New Covenant, we have folks coming to us saying they want to do business in North Lawndale, but we don't have a place to locate a business in North Lawndale. So we look at building infrastructure so that we can have offices, we can have community centers, we can have computer centers for the community to help develop it. So as we look at this, and Otto's made reference to 16th Street and Roosevelt, we're looking at Ogden now as our target. But ultimately, what we're looking at is to build up the entire community of North Lawndale. We have those kind of amenities throughout the community.
Thank you, Rodney. Yeah, the question disappeared from my screen, so I apologize for not addressing that element of it. And it's worth mentioning that Rodney is one of our corridor managers who we work with very closely. So that's earlier on in the Invest Southwest process, we released an RFP to involve some community partners and to work with DPD to really help us, have some boots on the ground, as it were. Okay, next question here. Okay, to Veronica Gonzalez, what utilities run through the alleys that pass through the lot? Existing underground utilities. Does the city have historical surveys available that we can reference? If there are lines, have they been televised to pursue abandonment and or rerouting? I'm gonna stop and address that first part of the question. So that is something that we can provide in the Q&A. I have not worked with, streets and sanitation or other departments on this, on what the most recent, maintenance or, review has been. To the second part, an alley vacation may be needed to the existing alley. Are the various city departments that will decide this amenable to that as an option? What has been discussed and approved by the city's departments? So yes, that has been discussed, particularly with the Department of Transportation, the potential to provide a more attractive development site by combining that parcel that fronts Trumbull, as well as the parcels that front Ogden. And they are amenable to vacating the alley where it's currently located and relocating it to that city-owned property on Trumbull there.
And Brian, I know we have Bill Higgins from CDOT on the line. Bill, is there anything that you could add to that, or in particular, the first part of the question? I know you guys kind of took a cursory look at this site for us.
Yes, this is Bill Higgins from CDOT. I can't speak to what existing utilities might be under there. We would need to run an Office of Underground Communications, the OUC, information retrieval in order to get that detailed information. But we can certainly do that. We have spoken with Brian and the DPD team about the potential to consolidate the site and reorganize where the alley is to better accommodate development, and that's certainly on the table as well. Whether that's a vacation that happens by the developer or it could be done prior to the transfer of the land. So it's both under consideration.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, we've worked very closely with CDOT on matters around Ogden Avenue, and they will definitely be part of our evaluation process going forward very closely. Okay, I'm going to go to the open questions here. So Brandon Green, can you identify the developer on the project across the site? Soon, but I would prefer not to at this moment. They haven't officially submitted paperwork for the project, even though we've been discussing it with them. So that's something that I would prefer to hold off on for now. Sherry Meyer, David Clark, Windy City Road Warrior, is an international historian of Route 66 in Chicago and transportation infrastructure. He is on the webinar. He can speak to the transformation of Ogden Boulevard from the 1870s to 2021. I have actually looked up Dave's, some content of his online. I think just in the interest of trying to keep this related to the project, I think we will hold off on Dave's expertise on it right now. No offense. From Jermaine McCord, is there a deposit required when firms submit their RFPs? Can you explain how that process works? Chris, Jan, can you please take this?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. As far as the good faith deposit is concerned, the RFP document actually spells out how that's going to be worked out. If you look at the page 52 of the RFP document, it tells about the good faith deposit and how much is required. So you can sort of base your calculation of the deposit amount based on that section of the RFP. If you are chosen as the the developer, then obviously that deposit would go towards the acquisition price of the land. However, if you're not selected as the developer through, after the community process and our evaluation, then the refund will be, returned back to you within a week of that decision, after that decision is made.
Thanks, Chris. So let's see. It looks like Alexis had a follow-up question. Can small businesses succeed there without a population buildup? So, this question is certainly valid and one that we've discussed, particularly with Alderman Scott, quite a bit, and I know that he's got a lot of thoughtful opinions on this, but essentially, yes, we do agree that more population is needed to support local businesses. We're trying to through projects like this increase the population along the corridor. We're hoping to do that equitably. As I mentioned before, we're looking at affordable housing across the street.
Right.
Yeah.
This is Commissioner Cox. I wouldn't mind taking a little crack at that.
Sure, please do.
I think we understand that this neighborhood has lost population, and we believe that the first order of business is to give amenities for those who stayed. The kind of neighborhood amenities that they deserve, which includes retail establishments. But we certainly are not leaving the future population growth of North Lawndale to chance. We are undertaking a neighborhood framework study, which will be happening over the course of 2021, that is going to look at a strategic infill housing strategy for your typical blocks. What types of housing deficits does North Lawndale have in terms of being attractive to a wide range of housing markets, from multifamily to duplexes and to single family. And so I think we anticipate, as a result of these more strategic studies, that we will be able to usher in a period of growth for North Lawndale, in which more and more of the typical kind of Main Street amenities that one would expect on Ogden will be what is the character of Ogden. And this particular site is meant to be almost a demonstration of what is to come across the entire length of the corridor. That said, we suspect that from the studies that were done in terms of retail capture, that the development proposals will have to be incredibly strategic about how much retail they think can be supported on the site.
Thanks, Commissioner. And to just put another number to provide context, this is in the market analysis that was done as part of the RFP. Our data showed that North Lawndale residents who live in proximity to the corridor here are spending roughly $100 million a year in communities outside of North Lawndale for general retail, buying their groceries, going out to eat, buying just day-to-day kinds of goods. So although the population loss and vacancy in the neighborhood is obviously something that we are aware of, clearly, the data also shows that there's an opportunity to add retail here as well. So
and Brian, can I speak to this as well really quickly?
Yes, please.
So I just want to echo what the commissioner said and what Brian said, and what Rodney said. There are a lot of lacking amenities in this community, and a bunch of community-centric folks who are I think just chomping at the bit for retail more retail and more amenities along any corridor, whether that be Ogden, whether that be 16th, or whether that be Roosevelt. The one thing that I think provides Ogden with a better sense of, or low-hanging fruit, if you will, for retail is the amount of traffic that comes up and down Ogden per day. Ogden is it stretches from suburbs all the way to downtown, and so there are a lot of folks who kind of drive, and I think retail will be supported in that way as well. But we do have a lot of leakage in terms of what happens in our community: groceries, clothing stores, food establishments, and so on. And so I think it'll be a great opportunity for individuals who live inside of the community to reap the benefit of any development that is there. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Alderman. I think that's a pretty thorough response to that question. Veronica's question: will the city conduct the subsurface investigation recommended in the phase 1, or will that be part of the developer responsibility upon award? So the phase 1 assessment of the site has been completed, and as of right now, I would need to defer to AIS as to whether we're I believe we're funded for a phase 2, but I would need to defer to AIS. I know that the engineer is the project manager on this, Jamie Blakesley. She's actually volunteering with the COVID vaccination effort right now. So is anyone from AIS available to take this?
Yeah, hi, Brian. This is Kevin LaBerge. I can take this.
Oh, great. Thanks, Kevin.
Yes, yeah, we do have some funding for a limited phase 2 subsurface investigation that is in process. We are working with our consultant to generate a sampling and analysis plan in order to move forward with that investigation.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Kevin. Brandon Green, what is the degree of flexibility in terms of percentage of commercial versus residential? I would say there's a high degree of flexibility. We're not, again, we did a financial analysis on, what the potential is here, and, for different types of development. But I think that rather than give a number for what we're looking for, I would just point to the evaluation criteria that I previously discussed and say, if you come to us with a project that is fitting of the vision here and, it strongly addresses those criteria, we're going to consider it if it's viable. However, there is a recommendation for, mixed income housing, a recommendation for, a pedestrian oriented mixed use project that's got active ground floor uses and retail. We talked about, desire in the community to have kind of flexible space to promote local entrepreneurship. There's a repeated interest in flexible, co-working office space, business incubator type spaces, things like that. So, these are all included in the recommendations there. But, we're not going to turn a project away if it can be proven to be feasible, just based on what the percentages of uses are. Oh, all right. I was going to go to another question, but it looks like Gerardo's been pretty busy on the text responses here. So I think we've covered everything. I don't know if there are any other further questions. I would also say to the panelists who are on here, if there's anything that I've missed that anyone would like to, follow up on, I would welcome you to join in. Sherry has another question here, or comment. Rutgers University in 2012 published an economic impact study of Route 66 from Chicago to Los Angeles documenting annual local economic impacts of $132 million. Approximately 40% of Route 66 tourism is international. Many of those travelers land at O'Hare and spend several days in Chicago. The Rutgers study is in the process of being updated. Excuse me. Is in the process of being updated. Route 66 will turn 100 in 2026. International tourism is ramping up in anticipation of that. Communities all the way to California have created Route 66 design, hospitality, retail, and transportation overlays, often funded by special taxes. Chicago is the only city not activating the Route 66 economy. I'm not an expert on Route 66 tourism, but we've certainly talked about the historical cachet of this corridor in the city. Route 66 is certainly a part of that. I think it's one of many aspects of the local identity for this corridor. Having just celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day, another vital part of the history in this community is that, Martin Luther King Jr. Lived in an apartment not too far off the Ogden corridor. So, this is an area with a rich past. You can look, not too far to the north was the, not the first necessarily Sears campus, but the former Sears campus. That's a huge historical, icon in the city of Chicago. So yeah, we do want to see a project that has cultural elements to it and, references that past, whether that's in the design, whether that's in the, the tenants and the programming of the building and, public art that's integrated into it. Creating a sense of place here that's based on the community's strong and rich history is part of our recommendations for what we want to see the project look like ultimately.
Hey, Brian, I can take the next question. And it's, what is the flexibility for rezoning potentially with some industrial? I think the city is open to supporting rezoning to make the vision that was outlined in the RFP a reality, to the extent that it's feasible or to the extent that it's reasonable. I think an industrial use on this site in this corridor does not align with what was laid out in the RFP, and certainly not with what we heard from our community stakeholders in terms of a desire for a pedestrian-oriented mixed-use corridor on Ogden Avenue.
Thanks, Gerardo. David Clark. The North Lawndale Historical and Cultural Society needs a brick and mortar museum, and it would be great to have a home on Ogden so it could function as Route 66 Welcome Center as well. Yeah, I think I referenced, the potential for incorporating the corridor's past in my previous response. But, I think that as long as it works within the greater, financial context and the community context that, this is a big site here. There's a lot you could do with it. And, we definitely want to see that the programming respond to the previous planning that's been done, responding to the needs for the community, like the alderman and like what Rodney previously addressed. And yeah, incorporate community identity as well. So, I think that, we definitely want to see retail amenities and commercial development be a part of this, not to, beat the proverbial dead horse here, but, North Lawndale is in need of amenities like that. And we really want to see that get addressed in this project, but there's potential to make it be more than that.
Brian, may I add one more thing? If people would take a look at, NOCCC put together a quality life plan with the community that we unveiled back on November 1st, 2018. You can get a copy of that plan at nlccplanning.org. You'll get a chance to see what the community worked on for 4 years in regards to what we were looking for in North Lawndale and what we need to bring to the community. It talks about housing, it talks about education, talks about economic development, safety, all those things we need to rebuild North Lawndale are included in that plan. So if people go to our site, take a look at that plan. Also, you can join the committee to help us execute what we're looking at right now. I think that'd be an excellent opportunity for people to get a sense of what's really going on in North Lawndale.
Thanks for the plug, Rodney. And yeah, I would just firmly second his comments there. You know, throughout all of the outreach that we have done around this project, I've heard so many times refer back to the quality of life plan, and that really seems to be like the, you know, the Bible for the community for future development, not just on Ogden, but in the community at large. So, you know, it's a very compact document. I know I've read through many lengthy plans. This one is, it's very concise and concentrated in, you know, like 30 pages or so. And it's really well done. And it's got, you know, most importantly, it reflects the community's will, at least as far as I've heard. So I would highly recommend for any interested applicants to refer to that quality of life plan. Thanks, Rodney.
Hey, Brian, can I say something real quick before, because I have to jump off. All right, so one, I want to thank all of the potential respondents for their interest in this community in North Lawndale. It's been an under-resourced and a long time before we've had a real eye on North Lawndale the way that it is focused right now. And I want to thank the department for their considerable work in making sure that this is brought to fruition, as well as the whole Invest Southwest corridor, as well as the RFP on Roosevelt and Ogden. You know, I think that this development here on Ogden is a starting point. So all of those things that we talked about, Route 66, and we talked about the Historical Society and a brick and mortar building. You know, I don't think that this is the end all be all of development here on Ogden. It's a starting point, and it's something where hopefully, you know, respondent here will be awarded and work with the community and do and represent all of the things that the community wants to see in this development, but also begin to work on other development, because there's a lot of land on Ogden that we will begin to work and kind of move and branch out after we do this. So again, I just want to thank each and every one of you for your interest in this community. I want to thank the department for their work on this, and look forward to working with each and every one of you in bringing North Lawndale back to its respective glory. Thanks, Brian, and you guys have a good day.
Thank you, Alderman. And yeah, I want to put in a big plug for our community partners in North Lawndale, that, you know, anybody who, you know, responds to this RFP and, you know, has the opportunity to work with the community members and their leaders, you know, you will not be disappointed at, you know, just the level of care and thoughtfulness that you know they've shown for, you know, the community that's, you know, nearest and dearest to them. So it's been a great experience for us so far, and you know, we're looking forward to doing you know, doing more, and bigger things here. So I'll just address this question here. I already answered it previously, but just really quick answer for the alleyway being relocated north of the property boundary. So, you know, we already responded to this, that yes, the current alleyway where it, the alignment where it intersects with Homan to the east of the site, that would be extended straight across to the west to Trumbull to allow for consolidation of the property. That's the plan. So, Chris, we had you lined up for some closing comments here.
Sure. It looks like, yeah, thank you, Brian. It looks like there's no other questions. So I just wanted to, I know Brian kind of mentioned this at the beginning of the conference, but the list of attendees who registered to attend this private conference will be shared with everybody, as well as posted on the Investor Hotspot website. So you can expect to get the list of attendees for today. In addition, all of the Q&A that we covered today would be added to an already posted Q&A file, a document already posted on the Investor Hotspot's website, and we will continue to update the Q&A document until March 23rd, a week prior to the response due date. The responses are due on March 30th again at 4 o'clock, before 4 o'clock, and all submissions should include an original, 5 copies of the proposal, and a flash drive containing all digital files. And the submission should be delivered to City Hall, room 1000 by a courier service. And then once we get the bids or proposals, we will be sending out a confirmation email to the respondents confirming receipt of their proposals. So that's all I have, and thank everybody for taking time to attend and join us today, this pre-bid conference. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Yeah, and with that, I think we can wrap it up. I just want to say thanks to everybody who took the time to attend today. And yeah, we'll be following up on all the points that Chris just mentioned, and really look forward to seeing the responses to the RFP.
Great, thank you.